I love games. Chances are that if you're watching this video, then you too love games. I don't imagine that is a pretty bold assumption, right? Well, why do we love games? A lot of that has to do with the protagonists we play as. Normally, the selection of these heroes in our midst is divided into two widespread categories. We either have a blank slate to work with, someone could have lost their memories, never had any to begin with, or they could have journeyed to a place a long way from home in search of making new ones, which sometimes ends up being for the worst. The gist is that there really isn't a select personality on display for the side characters to interact with. However, to combat this, we may have prompts to develop said personality, or we may just have someone else make the decisions for us. Either way, it acts as a tool for immersion since you don't have to meet any prerequisites of an already established person to feel like a part of the world. It's quite neat. Contrastingly, we then have exposition spoon-fed to us as we are introduced to someone that already has a connection to the universe we are trying to explore for the first time. To still make them relatable though, they're put in a new situation out of their comfort zone and have similar reactions to the story that play out for both us and them. Even if they know how the world works, they still can't predict the future, which is what allows us to connect with them despite a potential clash in our views with them. Even then, the previous statement is a rare instance, since all protagonists are majorly just the stereotypical good Samaritan. It's a tried and true formula. It gets the job done and is the most morally sound path a titular hero can take. The original trilogy of Resident Evil games that brought us the beloved characters we know now, aka the poster boy himself, Leon Kennedy, followed the latter type of protagonist, while Resident Evil 7 and 8 had us play as Ethan, a nobody that was separated from any past event in the series up to that point. And while most took this as a fresh start for the franchise after the train wreck step of 5 and 6, there was a much deeper reason behind this executive decision. To put it simply, Chris's boulder punching days were coming to an end. Leon, Claire, Ada, Jill, Chris, they were all getting old. Now, I want to say right off the bat that this video was inspired by Ink Ribbon. They run a great channel that covers everything Resident Evil, so give them a watch if you haven't already. Now, to the point I just made. Canonically, Chris Redfield was born in 1973, meaning he was 23 during the events of the original Resident Evil game in 1996, where he served as the point man for the STARS Alpha team. Village takes place a good 25 years later in February of 2021, putting Chris Redfield at the age of 48. It's certainly impressive that Chris is still in such robust shape and able to take on unspeakable horrors when he's nearly 50. Similarly, when Leon first appeared in the franchise, it was 1998, and he was 21 years old during the events of Raccoon City. The oldest we saw him was in Vendetta in 2017, making him 40 years old. On top of that, the two and many others have now seen their fair bit of just shit. Hell, Chris has served in more organizations than a broke college student trying to make a living. And Leon, well, he's a special agent for the fucking President of the United States. Resident Evil isn't known for its deeply intoxicating character arcs, so while it may not seem like it, these veterans have run their lifespan already. There just isn't much left for them to do in their current states. Just take a look at Chris's roles in the last two installments of the franchise and you'll get what I mean. He's brought in near the end of the games as a playable character only to be the most OP there is. He's even this ever dark, brooding and looming force to be reckoned with in Village. Capcom knew their strengths and realized what their protagonists had become and played to what they knew they'd done and displayed in the past. This is why Ethan was perfect for the role he was given. Not only was it a soft reboot of sorts in the early hours of Biohazard, but we as an audience were able to regain that sense of loss, confusion, relatability, and henceforth fright that had been lacking for a good while. You want to know why it was lacking in the first place? It's because we knew Leon was going to roundhouse kick his way through any zombies in his path. There was no sense of urgency, so when the games tried to ramp up the stakes, it only backfired in the end. This now brings us to a concept that had been coined by Inkribbon, which I wish to elaborate on. In this video, they discuss how despite being self-aware enough to know of the path their characters have gone down, Capcom still isn't ready to let go of their mainstream cash grabs. This led to the creation of the process of selective aging, where developers choose a specific era of their protagonist's journey and tell an expanded story within that time, typically when they were in their prime. This remind you of anything? Infinite Darkness mayhaps? Or maybe even the plethora of remakes? I don't even mean to frame this as anything new. The most revisited aspect of the series for spin-off games left and right is the original outbreak at either Raccoon or the Mansion simply because of the nostalgic factor, and how this was when the cast was getting their grips with the zombie-filled reality and were at their most vulnerable and terrified. This, in turn, made them a key vessel for the same horror inflicted upon players of the game. We know through the epilogue of Village that Chris will continue to be a part of the franchise. With the way he's set up, I speculate he'll be more of a mentor type. However, what concerns me with the direction that the games are heading in is who will take the main lead if not for Ethan's daughter. What I mean by this is that eventually Chris will be too old, and it doesn't seem that they have a story ready for Leon, Claire or Jill to take part in. I mean, what could they? What can senior citizens do? What I hope doesn't come to pass is what happened with Resident Evil 3 Remake. Going off of the success of the second game's remake, this one was clearly rushed. While that is a video in itself, there's no denying that it doesn't even compare to Resident Evil Remake 2. Part of me thinks that it was because they wanted to make as much money as they could with the nostalgia of these heroes that we had. If they know they can't continue the story in the present games, they'd want to do that in the past. With Remake 4 right around the corner, I only pray that it's done justice to its source material, since it'd be a grave stepping stone for Capcom to go down. I don't want to see a reality where the only time we get to see these heroes are in 2-hour gameplay demos sold for $60. They deserve more, no matter what form they're in. If you're interested in hearing me talk more about how games have diverted from their original intentions, take a look at these two videos here. In the meantime, this has been Vexodus, and thank you.